Hey everyone, this is Wednesday, the 12th of February 2025. This is the Cloud3 API project office hours. Please be aware we are supposed to follow the code of conduct, so feel nice to be nice to each other. Feel free to use the raise hand feature. Um, and yeah, add yourself to the agenda if you have topics. Also, add yourself to the attending list. And yeah, I think that's it. At the start, we take some time to um, give some time to folks which are new to the meeting here and want to introduce themselves. So I will turn off my mic for a second and let's see if feel free to speak up if you're new here. I can see lots of known faces. So okay, let's continue. Um, Open proposal readouts. We have two of them listed here, the in-place updates proposal and the CapD dev proposal, which is someone who wants to leave a sentence about one of them. I think both are making some progress these days. Yeah, Stefan.
Christian, sorry. I think we can remove the dev proposal. It is merged and there is already a PR out for the implementation.
Yeah,
Let me take a look for this. Yeah. Perfect. Thanks for the note. Okay, discussion topics. I directly have the first one. One short announcement, especially also maybe interesting for the release team. There's a migration happening regarding container registries. There was this mail on the mailing list at the end of January, if I'm right. And it's related to the Google Cloud Container Registry, which we are using for staging images. For example, to push to staging, and from there we normally promote to the production registry. Yeah, the Google Container Registry will be shut down in March. There is a replacement for that. There's the Artifact registry, if I'm not messing up the name. Yeah, the Artifact registry. And what will happen basically, to make this short, is on 15th, so this Friday, there will be a change from test infra, which switches the Google Container Registry we currently use to the Artifact registry. In theory, I think this shouldn't break things at the beginning, but yeah, especially for the release team, be aware that this is happening, and if there are issues we see it may be related to that when we're doing the next release or so. Also, of course, important for all the providers we have. Yeah, same applies for them if they're using the Kubernetes staging registry for releases. There's a follow-up action then in the following months, which will yeah, migrate from the staging registry we use then to a new one. But I think we will get some notifications around that soon when we have to take action. Yeah, that's from my side. If there are any questions, feel free. Otherwise, we can go to the next topic. Yeah. Stefan, go ahead.
Yep. Can you open the issue and then scroll down to the third comment from the bottom? Basically, just a quick FYI. So basically, we had like this lengthy discussion around where we should do validation, if we should do it via OpenAPI schema, which includes Cell. I don't know how far Cell was along when we started this discussion, but anyway, so basically we should do it in OpenAPI, including Cell, or if we should do it in webhooks. And I think at this point, at least between a few people, including me and Joel, we are at the point where we're saying, let's add, so basically the proposal section here at the bottom of the screen. The idea would be now that we add essentially new validation in the OpenAPI schema instead of webhooks whenever possible. We have a lot of pre-existing validation in webhooks that we can try to migrate over time. But there are exceptions in general where, for a bunch of reasons, we cannot implement them in Cell or by OpenAPI validation in some cases because we basically literally need Go, and Cell is not powerful enough to do some of the things that we do there. Also, we have some cases like it's not validation per se, but it's basically defaulting. That in some cases we have to be able to run the defaulting code in our controllers as well, and not only on the API server side, essentially. But I would say the big TLDR is here. Going forward, we try to add everything that we can in OpenAPI validation, and there are some exceptions that we might have discussed on a case-by-case basis. And if we get around to it, we can essentially try to move our existing validation towards OpenAPI. In general, if someone is interested in this topic, feel free to read the issue and respond. Yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you, Stefan. I don't see any people raising hands, so I think we can go to the next topic. Yeah, Fabrizio and Stefan.
Yeah, I can start, but please, Stefan, help me if I'm going nuts. So the topic is a little bit complex. I will try to make it clear and also add a note to try to keep the discussion focused. So this is an heads up. We are looking into storage migration and managed field cleanup. And yeah, if you are interested in the topic, please feel free to reach out to me or Stefan. The context is the following. So we are looking into adding V1 beta 2 and in defining a plane for deprecation and removal of V1 beta 1. Okay, but we have a well-known issue that exists in cluster API, in Kubernetes API server. And due to this well-known issue, as of today, we can't remove all the API versions. Because if we remove them, managed field conversion will fail for managed field created with all the API version. Okay. This is the reason why we are still shipping V1 Alpha 3 and V1 Alpha 4. Okay, we consider this not relevant, but we recently discovered that for each API version, each API version imply additional conversion call, and this additional conversion call impacts both API server and controller performance. So TLDR is not good to have too many old API versions. And this is why we are now, we now like to get rid of V1 Alpha 3, V1 Alpha 4 as soon as possible, as well as we want to have a plan for future removal of V1 Beta 1. Caveat, we are also engaging with API machinery to get the underlying issue to be fixed in Kubernetes. But in cluster API, even if they fix it now, in cluster API, we have to account for old version of management cluster that we support. So it will take roughly 1 year. If they fix now, it will take roughly 1 year before we can benefit from API server changes. So we need our own workaround or solution to fix those two problems. And to complete the picture, we are also we are also considering that the storage version migration. So whenever we add V1 beta 2, we want to migrate immediately all the CR to the new API version, so we have less conversion call. I don't know if I should stop here for question because this is complex. Otherwise, I can go and try to explain the idea that we are thinking about. Is there any question? Do you think that I can go on, Mike? Okay, I move on. So what we are thinking about as a solution. So as of today, we have some code for storage version migration in cluster cattle. Okay, so we are looking to move this code into a reconciler that will be run by copy controller. And the next step will be to extend this code to also handle managed field cleanup. Okay, so the assumption is that when we will have both 1 and 2, we can finally plan for API removal. We will also have a few additional benefits. So by running this code into a controller, we can migrate or clean up stuff incrementally in batches versus doing all the resources during install. And this is sort of required because the current approach in cluster cattle doesn't scale well, and it also eats API server rate limiting. And the other benefit is that by moving this operation to a controller, also people that are not using cluster cattle can benefit from this centralized storage migration managed field cleanup. If you think today folks that are using, I don't know, Helm, they have to implement their own solution for those problems. Instead, we are moving this as a central stuff in cluster API. However, there are a few caveats that we would like to bring up to this meeting. The first caveat is that the new reconciler will require write access on CRDs, on customer resource definition, because we want to use customer resource definition as a place to track progress. And also it is required to change the status of CRD to make things work. And second, cluster API need access on the customer resources to force the migration, the storage version migration. This is an issue because cluster API, the core controller cluster API, doesn't have and should not have grants for all the provider CRDs. Cluster API should not have grants, I don't know, for virtual machine in the sphere, in KV provider, or for KV identity or deployment zones, vSphere deployment and so on. So as a consequence, it will be required that each provider will have to instantiate the same reconciler that we are going to pack and into something reusable to take care of storage migration of managed field for their own CRDs and CRs. Of course, if we go down this path, we are going to expose the reconciler as a library, provide guidance, etc., etc. But yeah, I just wanted to bring this up. It's quite complex. I understand, but I think that is a problem that affects every provider, and this also bite us and providers back in time. So if folks are interested, please speak up.
Joel, go ahead.
So this is an interesting problem, and it goes beyond CAPI, right? Like anyone who has CRDs has these same problems. There is an existing project, storage version migration, that basically is a controller implementation of what Cluster Cuttle does. And that is an alpha feature now in Cube, right? They've been trying to move that in tree. I appreciate that project has stalled, but I wonder if spending some time, spending some effort trying to revive that in tree feature might be a better use of our time rather than building something separate here that's only useful for Cappy when in theory we could, if we can get that SIG API machinery project moving again, this could solve the problem for everyone. I appreciate, again, it's a year away, but has that been considered?
Stefan, do you want to answer to this one?
I can answer first. So I think two things. So ideally, definitely the storage version migrator thingy takes off, gets implemented, and solves it for everyone. We definitely had some points that we also want to bring up there because. So the tricky thing is, I think the storage version migrator doesn't go far enough. So we have two problems here that Fabrizio described before. One problem is just the storage version migration, which is about, okay, if you upgrade through the API versions, you have to make sure that every CRD has been stored like in newer versions, so you can get rid of old versions. Okay, that's one problem. But the other problem is managed fields. That basically, if you have a CR which goes through various versions, it will basically keep garbage of your old version within managed fields. And if that garbage is in there and the version is gone, and you do a server-side apply, so kubectl server-side true, then basically that request fails. Or if you do a client-side apply, the API server purges managed fields entirely with a message in the log like, this should never happen. It should not happen, I think is the exact quote. So I think to solve our entire problem, we have to expand the scope of the storage version migrator to also include managed field cleanup. What I'm not entirely sure about is if the name of this thing is storage version migrator. I don't know if they want to expand to, and we are also going to clean up managed fields, by the way, because it's a related problem. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't bring it up. I'm just saying, I think only reviving that project and making it work might not be enough. It's not enough. It's definitely not enough. So, yeah, I think we definitely have to invest there a bit. I just don't know if that should be our only bet to solve this. Basically, we have been keeping around Alpha 3 and Alpha 4, I think, already for 2 years, 3 years. And the way we are currently matching this is if we can get this thing implemented on our side in 1.10, we should be able to get rid of it next year. So if we rely on basically the storage version migrator reaching GA, I don't know how long we have to keep this. And the problem is essentially that if we don't get rid of I'm probably just repeating what Fabrizio said, but I'm just explaining a bit more. Maybe it becomes just a little bit more like just makes a bit more sense, or for some people easier to understand. So basically, the problem is with every version that we don't drop this, we get additional conversion calls, right? Because I think you didn't mention those details, Fabrizio, but basically the API server is opening informers for every single API version that a CRD has. Doesn't matter if it's served or not. That means for every single. So you're running scale tests with a few 100 or 1,000 clusters locally, and we're getting like 300 requests per second on a conversion webhook. So we never used an old API version. They were literally only in the CRDs, but we got 300 requests per second on a conversion webhook. Once we add beta 2, this of course will become even worse. So I think we reached a point where basically, if we don't do something soon, I don't know if we can introduce another API version or how long we can handle that that volume of requests. So yeah, that's like the situation we're in, I think.
Yeah,
it's not good.
I think that first of all, it is a good call. We looked into storage version migration. We didn't notice it that it was stalled. I think being very practical, what we can do is that at this time, with the current capacity that we have, is to provide info and experience, but we need a tactical solution in Cappy. I don't know how much we can help in revive the project on top of giving inputs which is more or less the same that we are doing in API machinery, by the way. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good, let me say, in an ideal world, we should not implement a storage migration, at least the start, and use it. But there is a timing issue and a resource issue, basically.
Yeah, and I think the full story is probably also something like, so if it's stalled for 1 year, I think it has been going on for like 5 years or something. Like, I mean, the whole topic of trying to solve this problem, not specifically the storage version migrated itself, but the documents that were floating around the years before. And I think it also required, to get to the current point, multiple features being implemented in the API server. So I think what this also might mean is that even if this reaches GA in the API server, we also have a support range for N-4 in CAPI for management cluster versions. That means if it's an in-tree solution, it has to reach GA, then we have to wait another 1.5 years, and then we can rely on it. So it's just, we're ending up with really endless timelines here, unfortunately. But I definitely see it the same way. I mean, basically, the more issues we find with CRDs, the more I can't believe like that these issues are actually there. But of course, the reason is why is because nobody actually worked on fixing them in Kubernetes itself. That's how open source works.
You should have a chat with the Gateway API folks and the issues they've had recently. But
fun.
Yeah,
this makes sense.
I have a plan to discuss with them at KubeCon, hopefully in person, because those are complex discussions to have.
Yeah, write me in. I'll be in London.
Oh, that's great to know.
Just wanted to add to that. I mean, if we implement it in CAPI, the code is there and can be reused or later on get used in the storage by version migrated too. So it's not lost then. Yeah, with that, Pavel has its hands raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my question is, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. So let's say I have custom resource definition and it has certain version, right? Let's say, I mean, in metadata may be based on kube builder version. So then of course there are some base types here. I mean, generated with the help of SDK of whatever. And my question would be, are we talking about webhooks like Kubernetes webhooks, objects that would need to be updated here with regard to operator, or are we talking about certain webhooks that should be updated to operators, kind of? I'm not sure if I asked this right.
Stefan, do you want to answer? You have your hand raised.
I mean, the
So
short
there are
answer,
two
is
questions.
no. I don't know how much that helps.
Okay.
So on a very high level, our problem is we have CRDs, right? So we have the cluster CRD. The cluster CRD has multiple API versions like V1, Alpha 3, Alpha 4, Beta 1. And ideally, you would expect that over time, you can just say, oh, we start with Alpha 3, and then we're going to add Alpha 4, and then we're going to add Beta 1, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
and
like
once we're done,
namespace scope version. Yeah, exactly.
And once we're done with that, we also just remove the old ones. Unfortunately, there are things in API server that don't, I mean, the way all of this currently works just doesn't allow us to drop this without hitting other issues elsewhere. So it has nothing to do with our webhooks or something. The only thing that is related to webhooks is that the API server is calling our conversion webhook when it tries to convert from an Alpha 3 cluster to a Beta 1 cluster or something. So those are the calls that are annoying us and leading to a lot of traffic there. But otherwise, it has nothing to do like with mutating webhooks or validating webhooks. It's mainly just that we're trying to find like a clean way to get rid of an old API version by making sure that in all the places where this old API version still exists, we clean it up. One place is etcd, that's the storage version migration. The other place is managed fields within our own cluster CR, for example. Yeah, so I don't know if that was helpful. But Not a point of view.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I think etcd is a perfect example here. So basically, we have two expensive webhooks, and we're trying to drop certain calls to control planes or a Kube API.
Yeah, it's more than just getting rid of the webhook calls. It's also, let's say we just drop alpha 3 without doing anything at all. The result would be that there are objects in etcd that the API server cannot read anymore. Right?
You
So
can
if you try to-
merge. I guess they can be merged for a minute,
No.
right? I mean,
No,
or
the API
about
server would
two
just, I think the API server would just say, I cannot read this thing, and that's it. End of story.
I
Okay.
suggest to look at the two issue above. They provide some good context.
Yeah, and there should be something in the community
I will.
documentation around custom resource definitions and API versions that explains some part of the storage version problem.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I think with that we can move to the next topic. Don't see any more questions. Yep. Marek, you're next. The way.
I think your microphone doesn't work,
Yep.
or at least I can't hear you.
If you need some time to fix that up, we could also move to the next topic first and then get back to you. That's okay. Okay. Joel.
Yeah, so if you've been following along for a few weeks, you'll know that I've been working on some API linting stuff. And I think we've kind of agreed to basically get it merged, get it working, but with all of the rules disabled. And then one by one, we can start enabling those different rules. There's only one open question left, which is whether we should use the new from rev or new from revision option of Golang CI lint here. So basically, we have two options. Either we don't add this flag, and then we have to retrospectively fix and or exclude each issue that it finds when we turn it an individual rule on. So for example, I looked at conditions earlier. One of the things it's supposed to be is meta v1 condition, which we're going to do with v1 beta 2, but in the previous, we have our own type. We would have to just come up with a way in the Golang CI link config to exclude that rule. And then we could have that working. In theory, that's fine. Or we do the new from rev main option, or new from rev some sort of environment variable that actions will give me. In which case, anything that exists in the merged base branch already will just be ignored and not reported. Does anyone have a strong opinion on which way we go here? Because I'm not too fussed either way from my perspective. I think the new from rev is useful for large code bases where we don't want to fix things up. But if the number of errors are low, then fixing them up or excluding them may well be okay.
Fabrizio. And Stefan.
So considering that we are going to enable one linter at a time, and that we would like to fix the finding for a set of linters, I will start without the revision flag, and eventually reconsider when we get to the more complex linter, that the linter that can have a more relevant impact. But for the other, I will try to clean up all the findings, move on.
Stefan.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how ugly the exclusion like regexes will become, but I would probably also give it a try. I think if I get it right, excludes probably allow us to, no, they should allow us to make a difference between we are ignoring these findings for beta. Oh, now it's echo.
Oh, Marek, can you mute yourself?
You hear me now?
Yes, I hear myself as well, but I hear you too.
Okay, thank you. I have a new laptop and there is some wired for me. So, but I can't share the screen.
Let's maybe finish up this topic first before we go to yours.
Yeah, shouldn't take long. Okay, what I was about to say is that I think with excludes we have a way to basically say, hey, we're ignoring this forever, or we're ignoring this, or within certain API types, or we only ignore this for beta 1 because we know that we can fix it with beta 2. My assumption would be something like that. Most findings we can either fix them for beta 1 and 2, or we can't fix them because breaking changes are still breaking changes. There might be some gray area in between, but for a lot of cases, I think it will be just the same. And basically, it means that if you already work with excludes on beta 1, those excludes will also work with beta 2. I mean, we can still decide on which folders exactly we want to apply the exclude rule tool if we want to only do it for beta 1. But it allows us basically to already end up with a conf that works with beta 2 and not like, oh, now we're adding beta 2 and we have to start from scratch because everything shows up. So I would give excludes a try, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work well.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think what I would prefer to do at least is if we go down the excludes route, we do it in a way that it's like excluding beta 1, and then when we do go to copy to beta 2, we can make those changes. So like one example would be the integers stuff. You're only supposed to use int 32 or int 64. We have some plain ints. That's an easy thing for us to fix. But if we do the exclude rule and just like, okay, just ignore this on this field for every version, we're not going to fix it as we go to V1 beta 2 when that is something that we can easily fix. So yeah, I think that gives me a path forward. I've created the tracking issue that you requested, Stefan. That made sense. So I'll get that PR updated and hopefully we can start moving forward.
Just wanted to add, I think when going forward and having releases with this included, it makes it also easier to maintain the branches and make the tool work for everyone locally, just as the normal linter. Perfect. Thanks. With that, I think we can move to the next. Marek, I guess your mic is still working.
Yes, I think so, but I have another issue. I can't share the screen.
I will have to make you co-host so you can share. Let me do that. And stop sharing, and now I should be able to share.
Is it shared or no?
Yeah.
Okay, so for the first, I would like to thanks many times to Fabrizio for his comments and patience with me. And I'd like to know if my proposal is now readable and if it's clean what we would like to achieve by this proposal. So I rephrase it a bit. So I used the two paradigms to define our needs. First is defined in isolated cluster management, where each Kubernetes clusters operates its own suite of copy controllers, and these paradigms using webhooks and priorities, isolations, and granularity. I am defining some features for that, like granular lifecycle management, logging metrics, mainly resource isolation, and security requirements. In the current state, there is option and copy can watch only one specified namespace, but we need to watch on multiple namespaces. In the second paradigm, it's centralized cluster management. Here is a centralized suite of Campy controllers, and it's designed for scenarios with not so much strict isolation requirements. We need to reduce overhead through decentralization. We need to prioritize use and scalability over strict isolation. For this purpose, we need new option to exclude some namespaces for watching. So the challenge can be coexistence of both these paradigms, and we need scope restriction and resource segregation to disable inference between those two paradigms. Our motivation.
Just wanted to chime in. I don't know if it makes sense to go completely through the proposal here and instead talk about what the next steps are or how, because yeah, I think we should asynchronously do this procedure to go through the proposal and give feedback. And as far as I did see, there's not yet looks good to me or so on the proposal yet. So I think that's would be the next step to get to an agreement somewhere if we get to one.
Okay, so my question is probably to Fabrizio, if it's clean and better than the previous version, and probably I'd like to know what Fabrizio thinks about it.
I need time to review latest version. Let me say, at the beginning there was really, it was really hard to read the proposal. There was an issue on terminology that hopefully has been fixed. And my second concern is that, as we discussed in the previous office hour, there are foundational issues that we should address. Cache, webhooks, version skew, and probably more. If we want to keep adding complexity on top of this. Otherwise, I think that it does not make sense. Because what we have today, we don't know if it works. Yeah, you can run it, but then you cannot operate it. So you will hit problem and an upgrade, etc., etc. So in my opinion, we have to really nail down this foundational issue. If we want to talk about sharding, if we want to talk about tenancy. Also, the simple definition of tenancy is confused because, and is not a problem. A problem of this proposal, it is that we have history in cluster API, and we have a definition of tenancy that says that tenant is the owner of cloud resources. Instead, in this proposal, you are introducing a different definition of tenancy, which is the owner of the CAPI cluster. But if this definition, if we don't find a way to clarify this, well, folks reading the proposal will be confused. So we have really to nail down terminology and to focus on foundational problems. Because otherwise, if we keep adding, oh, let's add exclusive namespace, but we don't fix, or let's not run webhooks. How can even copy work without running webhooks? How can you can even upgrade or release a new API version? So these are the fundamental. So I'm going to read it. I'm just reiterating on the comment that I left. So we discussed this in the office hour. It is a complex proposal. It will take time to get an agreement. And if we want to get an agreement, we have to nail down these core problems, in my opinion. Stefan?
Okay, so the next step is addressing the caching and other issues.
And yeah, take a look at the terminology that it also matches what we have in copy. Is another one. If I got Fabrizio right. Stefan, you also have your hands raised, and afterwards, Mohammed.
Yeah. So I did not have time to look at the proposal. Too much other stuff going on. But just 2 points. One point is usually we see copy as a combination of like the controllers, the webhooks, and the CRDs, right? And only very little of that is like you can run multiple times in like one single Kubernetes cluster and expect some sort of separation between multiple instances of the same thing, right? I mean, CRD is cluster wide. Webhooks are relatively cluster wide. You can use namespace selectors. So just alone the idea of saying, okay, hey, copy should also be able to run without its webhooks sounds like, oh my God, how do we even make this work, right? Because there's so much stuff in there that we simply need. But I didn't read the proposal, so I don't want to, I should read first and then give my comments. But just that was one thing that I just realized. The other thing is I'm wondering a bit about the scope. Are we only talking about core cluster API here, or are we talking about essentially also infrastructure, bootstrap, and control plane providers? And if we merge, I don't know how far this proposal describes today, but it's the goal basically, once we have consensus, once we merge this thing, every single provider out there has to follow like the same stuff, or how do we see this playing out? Because copy without real infra providers is not really, like, you can't really use it, right?
We would like to exclude some namespaces for watching resources. And the second part is selecting only selected namespaces. That's the main part of this proposal. Yes, and it can be used with multiple instances, but the confusion may be from the terminology, as Fabrizio said. Yes, it is not well defined, or it wasn't well defined. But I think that this version is better with the terminology. So.
Fabrizio, do you want to answer directly or have an additional point? If then I would go to Mohammed first.
Mohammed. Oh, sorry.
I try to keep it short. I think that we should not keep going back to we need exclude namespace or minus namespace or minus watch label. We already went down this path in the past, and we learned that there are ways that it does not work for the problem that Stefan was talking. So we have to solve, if we want to make progress, we have to understand how do you plan to solve this problem. The flag or the filter on the reconcile is the last of the problem in this story. So I don't even care about flags. We can have all the combination we want. But the issue is it does not work because in a cluster you have only one CRD version. And in the moment that you have one CRD version and 2 controller version, you have issue. we faced the issue. We learned the hard way that it does not work. So if you have an idea on how to make it work, I will be really happy to understand it. But otherwise, I will be wary to tell, oh, we support excluded namespace, and then as soon as someone try to use it, it faces problems.
Can I interrupt here, Fibriazo? Because like the proposal has been changed a lot, and I believe this misunderstanding it's because of terminologies that is not matching. So the team here is we are coming from OCM. It's like an open management cluster project. It's a cloud native project, and the terminology is we have a hub cluster, which is the management cluster and the cluster API terminology that is used to create another clusters. And the isolations between the creating clusters, it's needed by security, by networking perspective, and many other stuff. And actually allowing having multiple namespace and excluding multiple namespace, it's actually reduce the need of having multiple CABI instance running. So the proposal here is trying to generalize the need of having multiple namespace to be watched or excluded because of multiple user stories that is mentioned in the new proposal after Manic updated. One of them is you have a hub cluster, which is used to create clusters. And for every cluster, you need to apply security policy and you need to apply workloads. So you need to have, for a group of clusters, a namespace that is being watched. And you need to exclude another namespaces to be watched from CABI. This is for security reason, for isolation reason. It doesn't require two CABI instances, it's just single CABI instance. But as if CABI is only allowing one namespace to be watched, that makes it difficult to have this. So the approach is to have multiple CABI instances. But when we have multiple namespace to be watched, that reduces the need for multiple CABI instances. So it just goes through the proposal as Merrick updated, and it becomes more and more makes sense like to for like a centralized use case that you have multiple namespaces to be watched by CABI as it's needed for security, for tenant, for isolation, and as well as the proposal is not supporting two version. Like even if the multiple instance of CABI will be running, it's only supporting the same version. Like we're not saying we are running CABI 1.10 with 1.9. This is not supported and it's not gonna work. We know that. But the idea here is even if this will gonna happen, if there is some cases, some user story that we experience, that having two CAPI running, that could be one way to do the use case like needs, but it doesn't support two different versions. It's the same version. So as long as we're running the same version, like the same CABI 1.9, 1.10, that makes things like easy. Like it's not really a big deal. You have the same CRD, you have the same webhook validation that is running. It's pointing to the maybe first instance. It's a side issue, but in the end of the day, it's the same version with the same CRD. So the issues around having different CRDs and different webhook does not exist for now. But this is not the only case we're solving here. This is one use case of another use cases that is need a multiple namespace to be watched and maybe excluding namespace from watched for a single CABI instance. So it's just I feel the discussion is keep looping around, the how we can solve a multiple instance. We are not just addressing one multiple instance here. We're just addressing a single CABI instance that has a need for multiple namespace to be watched or excluded due to security and isolations and tenant need. I hope that clarify a bit, the paradigm, and yeah, see if people want to reply back.
Should I first? Okay. I think that clarifies definitely like the multi-version problem. So I assume we would have under non-goals trying to make all of this work with different versions of CAPI in the same cluster or something like that. What I think one thing that got me confused is like that we literally have the coexistence of both paradigms, which sounded to me like, okay, well, you want to do both in the same management cluster or hub cluster, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Yeah, but I'll read the proposal and give my feedback. I'm not sure when I get around to it, but once I do, I'll take a look. Yeah.
Fabrizio, you're on mute.
Thank you for the contest, but I think that first of all, I really hope that what you describe it is written in the proposal, so I will learn and understand better. But I think that the devil is in the detail. How can you run many instances of cluster PI in the same version? How can you upgrade? There will be a moment where you upgrade the first one and the second one is not upgraded. It is racy. Or you shut down entirely cluster API, or you write down, oh, we think that this is doable, but when we do upgrade, we have to shut down, we scale down everything, then upgrade, and then, so you have to add context, because otherwise it is not realistic that you have 10 instance of the same thing, of the same version always. You have to upgrade sooner or later. So if you have experience, I'm really happy to consider it, and because we really stumbled with this in the past, but we know that it's tricky. So please provide context, otherwise I'm simply stuck in, yeah, we had exclude the namespace, but then no one will be able to do an upgrade. Or, yeah, we run 5 instances of cluster API, assuming isolation, but then we will face issue because all of them will cache the same objects, and so memory will blow up. So please forget flags and talk about foundational issue. Otherwise, I don't see making this proposal making good progress.
Just want to give a last one to Mohammed, but before that, I think we should keep it short because we still have other topics and running out of time.
Yeah, so it's just again, I just want to make sure that the proposal is not discussing the multi-CAPI instance issue coexistence. This is one user story of the other user story that exists in the proposal. So when the upgrade might be like a problem for this user story, but there another user story that is required one CAPI instance, not multiple CAPI instance. And it's preferable to have multiple namespace to be watched or excluded. That's like, just read the proposal again. Maybe it might be like the first iteration was confusing a bit. But here we are not focused on having multi-CAPI instance running that's the whole proposal. It's also like addressing another use cases and excluding namespace or watch multiple namespace. In fact, as we evolve in this direction, it reduces the need for having multiple CAPI. Like, I don't want to go in more details because the time is running out, but yeah, just read the proposal without the mindset that we are fixing the two CAPI instance running. Read it from perspective that it's a single CAPI or multiple CAPI as a second option for some use cases. Yeah, that's all I can say.
Thanks, folks. Continue on the proposal then. Just want to add this process takes time, and please be patient with it. It's nothing to be done in a week or two because the code looks easy to accomplish. Thanks. With that, Chris?
Yeah, real quickly, I just want to point out I have a issue up for a failing test that I've been banging my head on for hours. I would appreciate some fresh eyes on it. Stephen mentioned, and I think I agree, that we're missing something real basic that's probably causing this, but the release 1.7 branch just can't do its conformance test with the latest 131 Kates anymore, because it looks like it spins up a cluster that might be version 130, but the components are 131. But if I replicate it locally, none of that happens. Anyway, so we can't figure out how to reproduce it. We don't know why it's happening, and there are no changes before and after it stopped that we can find. Second thing is I made a little PR change to some of our proud jobs to improve the image building log output, and I wanted to bring it up here so people knew there's kind of a relatively new flag that lets the image build output be put directly on the prow results page, or the test grid results page, so you need to dig into the artifact for the build log, and I think that's a nice quality of life feature. There's lots of other providers that aren't using this flag that you could, but I didn't want to propose for them in case their monitoring would get messed up by it. So I just wanted to bring some awareness to it. It looks like it make things a little easier, and that's it.
Thanks for bringing this up, especially taking a look also at the CI. And yeah, sounds like that image build logging improvement is a good thing for lots of providers and projects which are using test infra and don't know of it. Thank you. I think there are no questions and there are no provider updates noted. We have the working group Node Bootstrap here, Tilo. You're on mute.
Thank you. I was on mute twice. Basically, half of the folks popping up in the node bootstrapping meeting have a conflicting meeting series, so I was looking for a better slot for you folks. And I was hoping to get alignment in this meeting today. If it doesn't work, I set around calendar that you can pick your favorite slots. This is mostly for Fabrizio and Stefan, I think. So what slot will work better? Is it same day, 1 hour later? Would that work?
Let's take this offline.
I don't know if I have the bandwidth in general to join another weekly meeting. I have so much stuff going on. I mean, I'm trying to look at Nate's proposal for 4 weeks and I don't find the time.
We kind of depend on the input there. Like we're stuck otherwise.
Yeah, like everyone else on all sorts of other stuff.
Yeah, takes time to get to the next. Yeah, but in terms of finding a different spot to be maybe able to join in future, I think it would be best to have a offline link to maybe find a slot. As other meetings moved and yeah. Okay. With that, I would say thank you everyone for joining. We're on time. 1 minute left here, and see you all next week. Thank you.
Thanks.